So when we're living according to our values, we're more in flow, we're more in ease, and we're healthier.
Hmm.
When we live by introjected values from society, from our parents, from our educational institution or religion, those come across as I should, I could, I have to, I ought to, I need to, like all of those, they're called imperatives in my
Yeah.
world. That's like not our values. And I
Yeah.
think that's a really good like tip for people to go, oh, wait, what?
Yeah.
When we live by that, we are not being true to ourselves. We're not being authentic. It creates stress. It actually like creates polarization in the brain, which releases stress chemicals, which over time cause disease.
Right.
So disease state management in my world, dis-ease, is to not tolerate dis-ease, to look at everywhere I am disempowered, where I'm like,
Hmm.
tolerating, judging, complaining, blaming. All of these things are trying to put power outside of ourselves because instead of like owning who we are and how we are in the world.
Yeah.
So,
There's wow, there's a lot of threads I want to pull on that. I mean, it's you beautifully articulated it. It's what you talked about there with flow and with kind of peace, and how we think that that's a state that we need to find, when in reality, I remember the first time I talked with Sifu Harinder Singh on the podcast, and he gave his story, and he's a world-class martial artist and qigong master and everything. And he said the term flow is natural. We are in our own way. And that hit me so hard from there. And the first time I heard you speak, you said something similar, where our default pattern is a healthy person. But the narrative that we hear all the time is that there's something wrong with us. Oh, I don't feel good. What do I need to go get, like, to put into my body, or to change my makeup in here to become healthy? When in reality, it's like, no, our natural state is already healthy. But even in my own head, I was like, fuck, like that's not my thought right there. Like, I've heard the narrative before, and I do this as a profession, but how quickly that natural narrative and those imperatives, as you said, can just come into our language so freely and so easily that we don't even think that it's actually changing how we view, our own body and our own health.
Yeah, and the world and the people we interact with, right? We have that lens on the people that we interact with.
Yeah.
So
the imperatives is interesting. I've done a lot of personal work myself on that. Actually, Brian Grasso, shout out to BG. He was the first one that kind of caught me on that, when, saying the words like need, and I was saying like I need. It's like, you don't need to do anything. It's like, if you actually think about it logically, like, no, you don't need to do anything. It's like, what's a different word? And that was really challenging to do. I did a lot of journaling work. I did a lot of writing about how to change that wording, and it's worked very well. I still catch myself doing it and almost like, wait, what's a different word I can use for this? But when you do actually practice things like that to change that, it is a really powerful shift that you realize, to do, with kind of going into some practices for people if they find themselves in this, like using these imperatives. What are the kind of the first steps that you would do to help somebody kind of with these things?
Oh, like just noticing the imperatives for one.
I guess that's that would be, I guess, is that the first one that kind of look at, or like,
I mean,
you work with you work with healthcare leaders, on this, and I'm sure they're in an own narrative of probably being in this conglomerate of like, what can I do to change my own mind, and what can I do to change my practice? Like, what are those things that you do to start with working and helping someone?
I mean, it's wherever the awareness comes first, wherever they're disempowering themselves. Because how we disempower ourselves is a patterned response based usually on childhood. So actually where I start is looking at our childhood patterns and our strategies. So when we're a child, a baby, or a toddler, we need attachment, and we need to be seen and heard in our expression. And when we express ourselves authentically and with innocence, and we set our boundaries, say, I don't like that. When we don't get the attachment and love and acceptance that we need, we alter our behavior. And so to get the love and attachment that we need, because our survival absolutely depends on it, that gets embedded in our nervous system. And so we then use those strategies to get and maintain connection until at some point, and like the gap between authentic and strategy is addiction, anxiety, depression, all of these things. So I first seeing what their strategy is helps, because then we can be like, okay, are you in your strategy? You know, like mine was to be perfect. I was the superstar student. I was like the first one to go to college. I had so much potential. Oh, I hate that word. And so I have to watch myself. Am I expecting perfection? Am I wanting to be perfect here? And can I allow myself to be messy? Can I allow myself to learn and be imperfect